The massive starship Earth's Hope dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cathara sector. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge, looking out at the sight before them. Hundreds of alien ships floated in space around a huge space station. The station was bigger than any city on Earth. "Welcome to Arena Station," said the voice of Commander Vex through the communication system. Vex was a Thalorian, one of the blue-skinned aliens who ran most of the galactic trade routes. "You are the first humans to see our greatest pride." Sarah nodded to her crew. This was why they had traveled so far from Earth. Humanity had just been accepted as a trial member of the Galactic Council. But being accepted was just the first step. They had to prove they belonged here. "Arena Station is where all major disputes are settled," Vex continued. "Combat in the arena decides everything. Trade rights, territory claims, even diplomatic problems. It is much better than war." Through the big windows, Sarah could see the arena itself. It was a massive dome in the center of the station. Lights flashed around it like a crown of stars. Ships from dozens of different alien species docked at the station. Each ship was different. Some looked like metal insects. Others were smooth and curved like sea creatures. "The current champion is Gorvik the Crusher," Vex said. His voice carried respect and a little fear. "He is a Craxian warrior. For 2 full solar cycles, no being has defeated him. Craxians are the strongest species in known space." Sarah's security chief, Marcus Torres, stepped up beside her. He was a former Marine, tall and lean with dark hair and calm brown eyes. Marcus had served in 3 different conflicts on Earth. He was the kind of man who stayed quiet but saw everything. "How strong are we talking about?" Marcus asked. "A Craxian warrior can lift 3 tons with 1 arm," Vex replied. "Their bones are like metal. Their skin is thick as armor. Gorvik himself stands 3 meters tall and weighs as much as a small vehicle." Marcus whistled softly. "That's a big guy." The docking process took an hour. As their ship connected to the station, Sarah felt the artificial gravity shift slightly. Arena Station used standard galactic gravity, which was about 20% heavier than Earth normal. It would not be a problem for humans, but it might slow them down a little. When the airlock opened, they were met by a delegation of aliens. Sarah had studied the different species for months, but seeing them in person was different. The Thalorians were tall and elegant, with blue skin and large dark eyes. The Vorthok looked like walking tanks, covered in natural armor plates. There were others too, species she had only seen in pictures, but it was the Craxians that drew the most attention. 3 of them stood at the back of the group. They were giants. Even the smallest one was taller than Marcus. Their skin was gray and looked as tough as stone. Thick muscles bulged under their simple clothing. When they moved, the metal floor made small sounds under their weight. "Welcome, humans," said Ambassador Kolth, the lead Thalorian. "We are curious to see what your species can offer the galaxy." Sarah shook the ambassador's hand. His skin felt cool and dry. "We're honored to be here. Earth looks forward to being part of the galactic community." "Indeed," Kolth smiled, showing sharp white teeth. "In fact, we have arranged a small demonstration for you. The arena master has agreed to let one of your people face a junior champion. Nothing serious, you understand. Just a way for the galaxy to see what humans can do." Marcus and Sarah exchanged glances. This had not been part of the plan. They had expected to watch fights, not participate in them. "That's very generous," Sarah said carefully. "But we didn't come prepared for combat." "Oh, it will be quite safe," Kolth waved his hand. "The junior champions are much smaller than Gorvak. Some are only twice the size of your people." From the way Kolth spoke, Sarah could tell this was not really a choice. If they refused, it would look like weakness. The Galactic Council was watching. First impressions mattered. "I'll do it," Marcus said quietly. Marcus, we should discuss this, Sarah started. It's okay, Captain, Marcus replied. I've been in worse spots. The delegation moved through the station toward the arena. The corridors were huge, built to accommodate species of all sizes. Alien beings stopped to stare at the humans as they passed. Some pointed and whispered in languages Sarah could not understand. The arena itself was even more impressive from the inside. 50,000 seats rose up in circles around the central fighting area. The floor of the arena was made of some kind of energy field that could be shaped into different environments. Right now, it looked like simple flat ground. The arena can simulate any world, Colt explained as they took their seats in the diplomatic section. Desert, jungle, ice, even low gravity. Today we will use standard settings. Beings from across the galaxy filled the seats. Sarah saw species she had never imagined. Some looked almost human. Others were so alien she could not figure out how they moved. But they all had one thing in common. They were here to see violence. Your champion will face Korath the Swift, Colt announced. He is a young Craxian warrior. Very promising. Only defeated twice in his career. On the arena floor below, a massive figure walked into view. Korath was smaller than the other Craxians Sarah had seen, but he was still enormous. His gray skin was covered in scars that told of many battles. When he raised his arms to acknowledge the crowd, muscles like steel cables moved under his skin. The crowd cheered. It was a sound like thunder that rolled around the arena. Alien voices mixed together in excitement. And now, the arena master's voice boomed across the space. Facing Korath the Swift from the world called Earth, the human warrior. Marcus walked onto the arena floor. Next to Korath, he looked like a child challenging his father. The crowd grew quiet. Then scattered laughter began to spread through the seats. Sarah gripped the armrest of her chair. She hoped Marcus knew what he was doing. The laughter grew louder as Marcus walked across the arena floor. Alien voices called out in dozens of languages, but the meaning was clear. They thought this was a joke. In the diplomatic seats, Ambassador Colt leaned over to Sarah. Perhaps we should call this off, he said. His voice carried false concern. I would not want your warrior to be seriously hurt. Marcus can handle himself, Sarah replied. But inside, she was worried. The size difference was incredible. Korath was not just tall, he was massive in every way. His arms were thicker than Marcus's whole body. Down in the arena, Marcus ignored the laughter. He had learned long ago not to let crowds get into his head. Instead, he watched Korath move. The big warrior was walking around the arena, showing off for the audience. Each step shook the ground a little. But Marcus noticed something interesting. For all his size, Korath moved in straight lines. No curves, no angles. Just forward and back. The arena master's voice boomed again. Citizens of the galaxy, today we witness something new. For the first time, a human enters our sacred arena. More laughter rippled through the crowd. In one section, a group of Vorthot warriors were making bets. Sarah could see money changing hands. The odds were clearly not in Marcus's favor. The rules are simple, the arena master continued. Standard gravity, standard atmosphere. Victory by knockout, surrender, or death. Medical teams stand ready. Death. Sarah's blood went cold. This was supposed to be a demonstration, not a death match. Don't worry, Colt said, noticing her expression. Korath is young. He probably will not kill your warrior quickly. On the arena floor, a small alien approached each fighter. It carried what looked like medical scanners. These were the arena doctors, making sure both fighters were healthy enough for combat. The doctor spent only a few seconds scanning Marcus. Humans were new to galactic medicine, so there was not much to check. But when it scanned Korath, The process took longer. The doctor nodded and gave a signal to the arena master. Both warriors are cleared for combat. The announcement echoed. The crowd noise grew to a roar. Beings jumped to their feet. Some waved flags of their home worlds. Others just screamed in excitement. Marcus began to stretch. He moved slowly and carefully, working each muscle group. On Earth, he had practiced martial arts since he was 12 years old. Boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and military combat training. But this was different from any opponent he had ever faced. Korath watched Marcus stretch and laughed. The sound was like rocks falling down a mountain. To the big warrior, the human's movements looked weak and pointless. Is this some kind of mating dance? Korath called out in broken Galactic Standard. The crowd laughed harder. Marcus did not respond. He finished stretching and took a fighting stance. It was a basic boxing position. Hands up, feet shoulder-width apart, weight balanced. To most of the crowd, it looked like he was just standing there. But in one section of the arena, a group of beings sat very still. They were Zephyrians, an ancient species that rarely spoke to others. The Zephyrians had been studying combat for thousands of years. They knew what a proper fighting stance looked like. Elder Dex, the oldest Zephyrian in the group, leaned forward in his seat. Interesting, he whispered to his companions. The human knows how to position himself. But what can it matter? Replied another Zephyrian. He is so small. Elder Dex said nothing more, but his ancient eyes stayed focused on Marcus. The arena master raised his hand. Warriors, prepare for combat. Korath lifted his massive arms and roared. It was a sound that spoke of 1,000 battles. His voice echoed off the arena walls like thunder. Several smaller species in the crowd actually covered their ears. Marcus just stood there, watching. His face showed no fear, no anger, nothing at all. He looked almost bored. Begin. The arena master shouted. Korath charged immediately. His plan was simple. Run straight at the human and smash him into the ground. It was the same strategy that had worked for him many times before. Size and strength had always been enough. The crowd leaned forward. This would be over in seconds. Some aliens were already turning away, not wanting to see the human get crushed. But Marcus did not try to run away. Instead, he took 2 quick steps to the side. Korath's charge carried him past the spot where Marcus had been standing. The big warrior's momentum was so great that he could not stop quickly. The crowd grew quiet for a moment. That was not supposed to happen. Korath spun around, angry now. He had expected the human to freeze in fear. Instead, the small warrior had moved out of the way. It was embarrassing. Lucky, Korath growled. He charged again, this time with his arms spread wide to catch Marcus no matter which way he dodged. Marcus waited until the last second, then dropped to the ground and rolled between Korath's legs. The big warrior grabbed nothing but air. Now some of the crowd began to pay attention. A few even stopped laughing. Korath turned around again, but this time he was breathing a little harder. All that charging around was taking energy. He had expected to win by now. Stand still and fight, Korath demanded. Marcus circled slowly around the big warrior. He was studying Korath's movements, looking for patterns. The Craxian was strong and tough, but he was also predictable. Every attack was straightforward, using pure force. This is not how warriors fight, Korath complained to the crowd. He runs like a coward. Some of the audience agreed. They had come to see a battle, not a chase. But others were beginning to wonder. If the human was so weak, why could he not be caught? In the diplomatic section, Ambassador Kolth was frowning. This was not going as planned. The human was supposed to lose quickly and learn his place. Instead, he was making one of their junior champions look foolish. Sarah found herself holding her breath. Marcus was doing well so far, but he could not run forever. Eventually, Korath would land a hit. When that happened, the fight would be over. Down in the arena, Marcus was thinking the same thing. He needed to do more than just avoid attacks. He needed to find a way to win. But how do you defeat someone 3 times your size? The answer came from his marine training. In the military, he had learned that every enemy has weaknesses. Size could be a disadvantage if you used it right. Big meant slow. Strong meant using lots of energy. Tough meant overconfident. Marcus stopped running and took his fighting stance again. This time, he was not going to run away. Korath smiled, showing teeth like broken stones. Finally, you will fight like a warrior. The crowd grew quiet, sensing that something was about to change. Elder Dex leaned even further forward in his seat. Korath charged one more time, putting all his strength into a massive punch that could have broken a stone wall. Marcus stepped forward to meet him. Marcus stepped into Korath's charge, but not the way anyone expected. Instead of meeting the punch head-on, he moved at an angle. The massive fist whistled past his ear, missing by inches. At the same time, Marcus drove his elbow into Korath's ribs. The blow would have broken a human's bones. Against Korath's thick skin and muscle, it barely made a mark. But it surprised the big warrior. No one had ever moved toward his attacks before. Korath stumbled slightly, more from shock than pain. In that moment, Marcus was already moving again. He grabbed Korath's extended arm and used the warrior's own momentum to throw him off balance. It was not enough to knock Korath down. The Craxian was too heavy and too strong. But for the first time in the fight, he had to take a step back to steady himself. The arena fell completely silent. What was that? Someone in the crowd whispered. Marcus did not give Korath time to think. He moved in again, this time aiming kicks at the back of the warrior's knees. The kicks were fast and precise, hitting the exact spots where the leg joints bent. Korath swung his other arm in a wide arc, trying to catch Marcus with a backhand blow. Marcus ducked under the swing and came up with an uppercut to Korath's stomach. Again, the punch did no real damage, but it was in the exact spot where Korath had just taken a deep breath. The timing made him gasp and lose his air. Impossible, Ambassador Kolth muttered from the diplomatic section. The human is too small to hurt a Craxian. But Elder Dex was nodding slowly. He's not trying to hurt him, the old Zephyrian said. He is trying to exhaust him. Captain Sarah heard this and turned to look at the ancient alien. What do you mean? Your warrior understands something that Korath does not, Elder Dex explained. In a long fight, size becomes a weakness. The bigger you are, the more energy you use. And energy runs out. Down in the arena, Korath was beginning to understand this too. Each of his massive swings used enormous amounts of power. But the human never stayed still long enough for the attacks to connect. Meanwhile, Marcus's smaller movements used much less energy. Korath tried a different approach. Instead of throwing punches, he rushed forward with both arms out, trying to grab Marcus in a bear hug. If he could get his arms around the human, the fight would be over. Marcus saw it coming. He dropped to one knee and swept his leg in a wide circle, hitting both of Korath's ankles at the same time. For a creature Korath's size, this should have done nothing. But Marcus had timed it perfectly. The sweep hit just as Korath was shifting his weight from one foot to the other. With nothing to balance on, the massive warrior crashed to the ground. The sound echoed through the arena like thunder. 50,000 beings gasped at once. Korath rolled quickly and got back to his feet, but now he was breathing hard. A thin layer of sweat covered his gray skin. In all his previous fights, he had never been on the ground, not even for a second. Lucky shot, he growled, but his voice showed uncertainty for the first time. Marcus said nothing. He just resumed his fighting stance and waited. This time, Korath was more careful. He approached slowly, keeping his guard up. But careful meant slow, and slow meant using even more energy. When Korath threw his next punch, it was not as fast as before. Marcus had time to not just dodge, but to counterattack. He grabbed Korath's wrist with both hands and twisted. The move was called an arm drag in wrestling. It used the attacker's force against them. Korath found himself spinning sideways, off balance again. Marcus followed up with a series of quick punches to Korath's ribs, kidney area, and the back of his neck. None of the hits were powerful enough to cause serious damage, but each one was aimed at nerve points and pressure spots. Korath had never felt anything like it. The punches did not hurt much, but they made his muscles feel strange and weak. "What kind of fighting is this?" he demanded. "Effective fighting," Marcus replied. Those were the first words he had spoken since the match began. The crowd was no longer laughing. Beings who had been getting up to leave were sitting back down. In the betting sections, odds were changing rapidly. Korath wiped sweat from his forehead and tried another approach. He grabbed a handful of the arena floor, small stones that had been scattered there for decoration. He threw them at Marcus like bullets. Marcus twisted and weaved between the projectiles. His movements were smooth and flowing, like a dancer avoiding raindrops. Not a single stone touched him. "Show off," someone in the crowd called out, but it sounded more impressed than mocking. Korath was getting desperate. He'd been fighting for 10 minutes now, longer than any of his previous matches. His strength was still enormous, but it was not as great as when the fight began. He charged again, but this time Marcus did something different. Instead of moving away, he moved forward and to the side. As Korath passed by, Marcus jumped up and wrapped his arm around the warrior's thick neck. God, it was a sleeper hold, a technique designed to cut off blood flow to the brain. Against a human, it would cause unconsciousness in seconds. Against a Craxian with a neck like a tree trunk, it was almost useless. Marcus was not trying to choke Korath. He was using his weight as an anchor, making the big warrior carry him around. Every step Korath took now required lifting not just his own massive body, but Marcus as well. Korath reached back, trying to grab Marcus and throw him off. But the human was positioned perfectly, just out of reach of those powerful hands. The crowd was on its feet now. This was unlike anything they had ever seen. The small human was attached to the mighty Craxian like a determined parasite. Korath spun around, trying to shake Marcus loose. He backed up toward the arena wall, planning to slam Marcus against it. But Marcus let go at the last second and rolled away, leaving Korath to hit the wall with his own back. The impact shook the entire arena structure. Korath bounced off the wall and stumbled forward, dazed. Marcus was already moving. He came in low and fast, aiming for the backs of Korath's knees again. But this time, he did not just kick. He wrapped his arms around one of Korath's legs and pulled. It was a wrestling takedown, perfectly executed. Even a Craxian could not stand on one leg while someone pulled the other one out from under him. Korath fell again, this time landing face first. The arena floor shook like an earthquake. When Korath pushed himself up to his hands and knees, Marcus was waiting. He jumped onto the warrior's back and wrapped his arm around Korath's neck again. But this time, he had better positioning. "Enough games," Marcus said quietly, just loud enough for Korath to hear. "You can surrender now, or we can keep going until you pass out." Korath tried to buck Marcus off like an angry animal, but his movements were slower now. The constant fighting was wearing him down. His gray skin was soaked with sweat, and his breathing was heavy and labored. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the impossible continued to happen. The small human was dominating one of their strongest warriors, and he was doing it without using any superior strength or size. He was doing it with technique, timing, and intelligence. Elder Dex turned to his fellow Zephyrians. "When was the last time we saw fighting like this?" "Not for 1,000 years," one of them replied. "Maybe longer." In the diplomatic section, Ambassador Kolth was no longer smiling. This demonstration was not going according to plan at all. Korath managed to get back to his feet with Marcus still hanging on his back. The big warrior reached behind himself again, and this time his massive hands found their target. He grabbed Marcus by the shirt and pulled him over his shoulder, throwing him across the arena. Marcus hit the ground and rolled, absorbing the impact. But even as he rolled, he could see that Korath was breathing like a broken machine. The warrior's chest was rising and falling rapidly. Sweat poured down his gray skin like rain. The crowd erupted in cheers. Finally, their champion had landed a solid hit on the human. Many thought the fight was over now, but Marcus got to his feet smoothly, showing no signs of serious injury. He brushed dust off his clothes and took his fighting stance again. Korath stared at him in disbelief. Any normal being should have been broken by that throw. The human should be lying on the ground, unable to move. "What are you made of?" Korath gasped. Marcus smiled for the first time since the fight began. "Practice," he said simply. The truth was that Marcus had been thrown around plenty of times in his training. Marine combat courses, martial arts sparring, and years of hard experience had taught him how to fall safely. What felt devastating to Korath was just another day at the office for Marcus. Korath charged again, but his movements were clumsy now. He had been fighting for 20 minutes, and his enormous body was running out of fuel. Each punch was slower than the last. Each step was heavier. Marcus dodged easily and landed 3 quick jabs to Korath's solar plexus. The nerve center just below the rib cage was the same on every humanoid species. Hit it right, and even the strongest warrior would have trouble breathing. Korath doubled over, gasping for air. He had never felt so tired in his life. His legs were shaking with exhaustion. "Surrender," Marcus said quietly. "You fought well, but this is over." Korath's pride would not let him quit. He was a Craxian warrior. His people did not surrender to anyone, especially not to some tiny alien from a world nobody had heard of. With a roar that took the last of his strength, Korath launched himself into one final desperate attack. He put everything he had left into a massive, overhand punch that could have shattered stone. It was exactly what Marcus had been waiting for. The human had studied Korath's fighting style for 20 minutes now. He knew exactly how the warrior moved when he was tired. He knew that when Craxians got desperate, they always threw the same big, telegraphed punch. Marcus stepped slightly to his left as the punch came down. The massive fist passed so close to his head that he could feel the wind from it. But close was not good enough. As Korath's arm extended fully, Marcus moved. He stepped forward and to the side, getting inside Korath's guard. His right hand came up in a perfect uppercut, aimed at one very specific target. Every species had pressure points, spots where the right hit could cause unconsciousness without permanent damage. Marcus had spent weeks studying Craxian anatomy, learning where those spots were. The uppercut landed just under Korath's jaw, at the exact point where several major nerves came together. For a human, it would have been a good punch. For a Craxian with their different bone structure and nerve placement, it was devastating. Korath's eyes went wide with shock. Then they rolled back in his head. The massive warrior swayed for a moment, like a tree that had just been cut. His legs buckled. His arms fell to his sides. Then all 400 kilograms of Craxian champion crashed to the arena floor. The sound echoed through the arena like a building falling down. Dust rose up from where his body hit the ground. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even breathed. 50,000 beings from across the galaxy stared in complete silence at the impossible sight before them. The mighty Korath the Swift, junior champion of the arena, lay unconscious on the ground. Standing over him, barely breathing hard, was the small human warrior. Marcus checked Korath's pulse to make sure he was still alive, then stepped back and raised his hands to signal victory. It was a simple, respectful gesture. The silence stretched on. And on Dot in the diplomatic section, Ambassador Kolth's mouth was hanging open. His blue skin had turned a pale shade of green. He looked like he was about to be sick. Captain Sarah was on her feet, but she could not find words. She had known Marcus was skilled, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. Elder Lex was nodding slowly, a look of deep satisfaction on his ancient face. "Magnificent," he whispered. "Simply magnificent." The arena doctors rushed onto the floor to check on both fighters. They scanned Korath and confirmed that he was unconscious but uninjured. When they scanned Marcus, they found a few minor bruises and nothing else. "Winner by knockout," the arena master announced, but his voice sounded confused and uncertain. He had never had to announce a human victory before. That was when the silence finally broke. It started with one Zephyrian clapping slowly. Then another joined in. Then a group of young Thalorians began to cheer. Within seconds, the entire arena erupted in noise. But it was not the same kind of cheering that had greeted Korath at the beginning. This was different. This was the sound of respect. Aliens who had been laughing at Marcus 20 minutes ago were now on their feet, applauding. Beings who had never heard of humans before were shouting his name. The betting sections were in chaos. Creatures who had put money on the human at 1,000 to 1 odds were suddenly very rich. The betting houses would be paying out fortunes. But the noise was not what Marcus was paying attention to. He was watching Korath, waiting for the big warrior to wake up. After a few minutes, Korath's eyes fluttered open. He looked around, confused for a moment. Then he saw Marcus standing nearby and remembered what had happened. Slowly, carefully, Korath sat up. The arena doctors tried to make him lie down, but he waved them away. He was hurting his pride more than his body. "How?" Korath asked, looking up at Marcus. "How did you defeat me?" Marcus reached down and offered his hand to help Korath stand. After a moment of hesitation, the big warrior took it. "You are strong," Marcus said as he helped pull Korath to his feet. "Stronger than anyone I have ever fought. But strength is not everything." Korath nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand. "You used my strength against me." "I used everything against you," Marcus corrected. "Your strength, your size, your anger, your pride. In my world, we have a saying. The harder they are, the harder they fall." Korath looked around at the cheering crowd, then back at Marcus. Something important was happening here. He could feel it. Without saying another word, Korath reached down and picked up Marcus's right hand. He raised it high in the air, showing the entire arena that he accepted his defeat. The cheering got even louder. The gesture of respect from Korath sent a wave of shock through the arena that was even greater than the knockout itself. In Craxian culture, raising an opponent's hand was the highest honor a warrior could give. It meant complete acknowledgement of superior skill. Elder Dex rose from his seat and began walking down toward the arena floor. The ancient Zephyrian moved slowly but with purpose. The crowd noticed and began to quiet down, watching with curiosity. Elder Dex rarely leaves his seat for anyone. Ambassador Kolth whispered to Captain Sarah. His voice still carried disbelief. I have never seen him approach the arena floor. When the old Zephyrian reached the edge of the fighting area, he stopped and studied Marcus carefully. His ancient eyes seemed to see things that others missed. "Human warrior," Elder Dex called out in a voice that carried clearly through the arena. "May I examine your fighting techniques?" Marcus looked surprised. "Of course, sir. But why?" Elder Dex stepped onto the arena floor with the help of two younger Zephyrians. "Because," he said, "I have lived for over 800 years. I have seen every fighting style in known space. But what you just demonstrated is something new." The arena fell silent again as Elder Dex approached Marcus. The old alien moved with the careful steps of someone who had seen too many years. But his mind was clearly sharp. "Show me the strike that ended the fight," Elder Dex requested. Marcus demonstrated the uppercut in slow motion, explaining the targeting and timing. Elder Dex watched with intense concentration, occasionally asking questions about human anatomy and nerve structure. "Fascinating," the Elder said when Marcus finished. "You combine the flow concepts of Thalorian water dancing with the precise targeting of ancient, Vorthic pressure point fighting. But there is something else. Something uniquely human." "What's that?" Marcus asked. "Adaptability," Elder Dex replied. "Most species develop one fighting style and stick to it for generations. You took the best parts from many different approaches and made them work together. That is not just intelligence. That is wisdom." The old Zephyrian turned to address the crowd. When he spoke, his voice was amplified throughout the arena. "Citizens of the galaxy," Elder Dex announced. "Today we have witnessed something remarkable. Not just the victory of a smaller fighter over a larger one. Not just skill over strength. We have seen the emergence of a new warrior tradition." The crowd listened with respect. Elder Dex was known as one of the greatest combat scholars in galactic history. His words carried enormous weight. "The humans have brought us something we have not seen in a very long time," the Elder continued. "Innovation, progress, evolution in the art of combat. This is worthy of our highest respect." Elder Dex turned back to Marcus. "I would be honored if you would visit our combat academies and share your techniques with our students. Not to replace their traditions, but to expand them." Marcus looked at Captain Sarah, who nodded her approval. "I would be honored, Elder." The crowd erupted in cheering again, but now it had a different quality. It was not just excitement anymore. It was appreciation. Ambassador Kolth finally found his voice. He stepped down to the arena floor, his diplomatic training helping him recover from the shock. "This has been most educational," Kolth said, trying to maintain his composure. "I believe we need to discuss the implications of today's events." Captain Sarah joined the group on the arena floor. "What kind of implications?" "Your trial membership in the Galactic Council," Kolth explained. "The combat demonstration was intended to show us what humanity could offer. I think it is safe to say that you have exceeded our expectations." That was an understatement. Humans had just proven they could hold their own in some of the strongest species in the galaxy. More importantly, they had done it through skill and intelligence rather than raw power. "There will need to be a full council review," Kolth continued. "But I suspect the vote for full membership will be favorable." Across the arena, other diplomatic groups were having similar discussions. The Vorthic delegation was arguing among themselves about the military implications. The Craxian observers were demanding to know how humans had developed such effective anti-Craxian fighting techniques, but it was the reaction of the crowd that really mattered. Average citizens from dozens of worlds were talking excitedly about what they had seen. The story would spread across the galaxy within days. Korath had recovered enough to walk on his own, though he still looked shaky. He approached Marcus with something like respect in his eyes. "I have a question," Korath said. "If you could defeat me so easily, why did you let the fight last so long? You could have ended it much sooner." Marcus considered the question carefully. "Because winning fast would have taught you nothing. This way, you felt every mistake, understood every weakness. You learned something about yourself and about fighting. That is more valuable than a quick victory." Korath nodded slowly. "You fought to teach, not just to win. In my world, The best victories are the ones where your opponent becomes stronger afterward, Marcus replied. Elder Dex overheard this exchange and smiled. Yes, he said quietly to himself. Definitely something new. Over the following days, the effects of the fight rippled through galactic society. Combat schools across 100 worlds requested human instructors. Military academies wanted to study human tactics. Even the arena champion himself, Garvuk the Crusher, sent a formal challenge to any human warrior willing to face him. The betting houses that had paid out on Marcus's victory started offering much better odds on human fighters. Suddenly, being small and quick seemed like an advantage instead of a weakness. Captain Sarah found herself invited to diplomatic dinners that had been closed to humans before. Trade delegations that had ignored Earth were now requesting meetings. The perception of humanity had changed overnight. It's amazing what one fight can do, Sarah commented to Marcus as they prepared to leave Arena Station. It wasn't the fight, Marcus replied. It was what the fight represented. We showed them that humans don't give up. We adapt. We learn. We find ways to win even when the odds are against us. And that scares them? No, Marcus said, looking out at the stars. That makes them respect us. Fear would have made them our enemies. Respect makes them our allies. 3 months later, the Galactic Council voted unanimously to grant humanity full membership. It was the fastest transition from trial member to full member in Council history. Marcus Torres became the first human combat instructor at the Galactic Academy. His classes were always full, with students from every known species wanting to learn human fighting techniques. The arena where he had defeated Korath was renamed the Unity Arena to commemorate the day. Humans truly joined the galactic community, and in the record books, next to the entry for the shortest championship fight in arena history, a new entry was added. The day the galaxy learned that sometimes the strongest warrior is not the biggest one. But perhaps the most important change was in how species looked at each other. If humans could surprise everyone so completely, what other hidden strengths did the lesser species possess? The galaxy became a much more interesting and respectful place. Marcus often said that the real victory was not in knocking out Korath. The real victory was in proving that every species, no matter how small or seemingly weak, had something valuable to contribute. And every time a young alien was told they were too small to be a warrior, someone would tell them the story of the human who made the entire galactic arena go silent. The story of Marcus Torres, the man who taught the galaxy that heart, skill, and determination could triumph over any odds.